Hello everyone. Today, I want to share with you an incredibly exciting novel. Imagine a boy who is threatened by his own brother William, who tries to harm him, but William is actually trying to protect him. The familial conflicts in this story are heart-wrenching, and what's even more unexpected is that this boy is actually a god. What's going on here? How will his divine powers affect his relationship with William? Let's dive into this novel and see how the protagonist balances family and threats. Chapter 43. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Scott, their expressions a mix of shock and disbelief. The words "full God" hung in the air, heavy with implications. Jacob felt as if he were trapped in a surreal dream. His skeptical nature struggled to process the information, especially coming from his father. How did Scott even know about werewolves? The overwhelming feeling of confusion threatened to engulf him. "Is this," Jacob whispered, his voice barely audible, "a joke?" Hunter's protective instinct kicked in as he gazed at his mate. He had always sensed Jacob was special, but this revelation was beyond anything he could have imagined. Scott's calm demeanor remained unchanged as he replied, "It's not a joke. I know it's a lot to take in, but you've already accepted werewolves. This shouldn't be too much of a stretch." Margot and her mother exchanged knowing glances. They had always sensed Jacob's uniqueness, but this revelation elevated him to an extraordinary level. The fact that royalty among wolves had bonded with Hunter was astounding. Their belief in gods made it easier for them to accept this new reality. Anthony, ever the skeptic, frowned deeply. "Hold on a second," he interjected, his fact-oriented mind struggling to process the information. "You've just walked in here and told us your son is a god, and we're supposed to believe you. How do you even know about us?" His need for concrete evidence was evident in his tone. Margot turned to Anthony, squeezing his hand reassuringly. "It must be true," she said softly. "You saw the lightning appear from his palms and how his body grew. If that's not enough proof for you, I don't know what is." She then addressed Scott. Her curiosity piqued. "I think I've heard of this prophecy. Can you please explain it to everyone?" Jacob remained motionless, his mind reeling from the revelation. His eyes, wide with disbelief and confusion, stared blankly ahead. "Jacob." Hunter's voice echoed in his head, causing Jacob to startle slightly as he realized their mind had been reactivated. "Remember, you don't have to do anything. Just listen and let it sink in." Seeking comfort, Jacob found himself leaning into Hunter, drawing strength from their shared warmth. He desperately needed the support in this moment of uncertainty. Scott took a deep breath, preparing to delve into the explanation. "So I know about the werewolves because they have been in my family for thousands of years. However, in the last 500 years or so, they haven't because that is when the gods were destroyed." By what?" Hunter interrupted. He was very confused about this whole situation and he has not heard about the prophecy before. "No one knows. There are rumors that the gods fought with each other and nobody survived, but what caused such an argument? That is a hole in the prophecy that not a soul can answer." Scott watched his son the whole time. The moment he looked like 𝐾𝐤𝐬𝐷 take him on a walk and help him to clear his head. Now, after the gods had left this universe, the prophecy was born. Our ancestors believed that this was the end because the gods talked about the future and how there would be 𝐊𝐢, born through a generation in the 21st century. They seemed to know they did die before it happened. We don't know why, but it must be for a huge reason. The silence when he stopped talking was filling everyone's ears with so many thoughts and questions. "How many gods are there?" Hunter asked. "There are rumored to be 8 gods. A god of beauty, wisdom, electricity, truth, earth, water, air and fire. But they are based around the world, and if I've got my facts right, there is only one in the United Kingdom. And that's you, Jacob." Jacob was listening, but his mind seemed like it was a million miles away. So Anthony sat forwards and linked his fingers together. "You think other gods are coming back through this generation?" "I do. It's what I was taught to believe. It was my great great, 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 great. I think grandfather, who was the god of electricity. So my grandfathers have passed it on to their kids and kept it going until it was time. How did you know it was Jacob? Hunter asked. You have two sons. They say that when the god of electricity is born, the sky knows. And when Grace fell into labor with you, Jacob, I've ever seen a storm that bad. Lightning was flashing every 30 seconds and the storm hovered over the hospital until you were born. Then it cleared up, just like that. I know you took the power when you entered this world, and that is why your real name is 𝐤𝐤𝐧𝐠, because you are the rightful owner. Scott didn't know if his son was listening properly. He started to get that look in his eye when he was full with too much to think about. Why did you keep this a secret from him? 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐻 questioned. Because I wanted him to have a normal childhood. I knew it would all change when he found his mate. Every 𝐿𝐴𝐻 then made their way to Jacob, who felt very odd with this rumor to name. He didn't want to believe that his own dad was talking about something so surreal. He sat forwards and watched him closely. Why now? He whispered. Why is this happening? Scott gave him a little smile. He really wanted to chat to him alone so he could really understand what was going on inside his head. I don't know why the gods needed to appear again. Maybe the wolf world was in need of some order, or there might be a greater purpose. But I do know that this is very real, and everything I have just said is not a word of a lie. That seemed to imprint onto Jacob's brain. His dad was telling him the truth. Hunter could hear his mind slowly getting quieter, and it didn't feel as panicked, which was the opposite of where he thought it was going. Why did I turn into a wolf if I'm not a werewolf? Jacob asked quietly. Because you're a god of the wolves. I guess it would make sense to have a wolf form too. Scott wasn't quite sure. But you're just human? Hunter asked him. Yes, and Grace. Does she know? She's just human too. And no, she doesn't know about any of this. Neither does William. But he has a different name on his birth certificate. I showed her a fake one with the name Jacob on it. I didn't tell her any of this. She'd think I was crazy. Scott chuckled, but the reality would have been harsh. He knows that Grace would not have stayed with him if he believed in such mad things, and Cal didn't prove any of it. Jacob frowned and started to fidget. It was starting to sink in. Hunter felt quite special to be mated with someone who is rumored to be a god of the wolves. He could now start to see Jacob in a much brighter light. However, why was he paired with someone so incredible? Scott, he asked, why am I mated with your son? I'm just a werewolf. Nothing special. Margot and Anthony watched him, also wondering that. I'm not sure actually. Scott tilted his head. But I'm sure you're not just ordinary if you're mates with a god. Jacob quickly stood up. He had the sudden need for air. Dad, can I talk to you? Of course. Scott guided him to the front door. Everyone watched until they left. Their words were hanging on their tongues. Even Anthony, who was skeptical about the gods, was left wondering if this was really true. Scott seemed to have a lot of information. It might not be logical, and there are things yet to be answered, but it had Margot and Flora feeling excited. Jacob walked down the wooden steps. His dad studied him and hoped that he was going to break down. He was very good at keeping things hidden until something simple or small flicked the switch and it all would come flooding out. I know that some part of you believes. You've seen the lightning, you can feel your power. It is a fast change and it's completely understandable if you need time to come to terms with it. Jacob turned to the face he knew so well and the person who he trusted with all his heart. My life has been a lie, he whispered. The worry crept onto Scott's face. But I don't care. The worry then turned into confusion. For a long time, I felt like I was going to mean nothing to this world. I literally had no purpose. But now, I just feel wanted. Scott smiled and rested a hand on his shoulder. I'm so sorry I kept this a secret. You have no idea how much I wanted to tell you, but I couldn't. You were born for this. It was destined before you even entered this world. He chuckled. You are the most wonderful person I could have ever raised. You are perfect for this, and it wouldn't be you if you were not fit for the role. He then pulled him into a tight hug. He was taller and bigger, but he now understood his growth. It was to suit his godly figure. I love you so much. You know I'm here for you no matter what. I know. Jacob hugged back. He wanted the next few days to carry on like normal, so he really had the opportunity to let it sink in. I love you too. Thank you for finally telling me. Scott patted his back and pulled away. It feels so good to have it out in the open. I'm really surprised. You're taking this very well. Jacob nodded and looked down to the grass. I have no choice. I can't keep pretending that it's not real, and I need to stop getting overwhelmed. It's happening whether I take it badly or not. He sighed and ran a hand through his hair. But I'm still trying to understand. You deserve to know everything, and hopefully you'll find it easier to come to terms with if you can talk to me as well as Hunter. Jacob did feel a little calmer at the thought of his dad helping him through this. Did you know it was Hunter's voice in my head for a year? He questioned. He was beginning to forget about that now. He wasn't as angry as what he was. I didn't know it was Hunter's, and I wasn't sure if it was a mental illness or your mate. I guess. I didn't think any wolf would leave you so broken for all that time, but Hunter was scared, and you can't really blame him. He didn't know what he was doing. Jacob nodded and took a big breath. He looked up to the sky and stared at the clouds. Oh, actually, Scott said with a frown. My father passed on a letter to me with everything you're supposed to feel within the upcoming days. When did this all start? It happened yesterday. Okay. Well, they say it's a cycle of 5 lunar days for the transformation to complete itself. If I'm right, there should be a full moon on the 5th day, and that's when your soul will feel the change to, or something like that. Jacob's heart thumped in his chest. What else was going to happen to him? Would his tooth grow? Would he grow again? Would the lightning become more manageable? Nobody really understood what else was in store for him. Being a god required so much more than just authority, and they would soon find out his full potential. Chapter 44. Hunter's gray eyes watched the black silhouette of us that flew against the outline of the setting sun. The sky was clear and full of a vibrant red and orange horizon that sat at the top of the forest trees. There was a gentle breeze that stroked his skin. He moved his foot and heard the faint creak of the wooden steps under his feet. He brushed his fingers across the uneven wood of the porch. His mind was lost in everything he was told today. Growing up, he heard 2 different opinions on gods. His mother believed, but his dad didn't. He stopped caring when he was older because he didn't think it would matter. Even if the gods did exist, they would have never affected his life, so what was the point in wasting precious thoughts about it? He couldn't have been more wrong. Never in his wildest dreams would he think 𝐻ED be paired with a god. A week ago, Jacob was a human. He was regular, simple and normal. His perception of him has changed so much, but his feelings never altered. He still loved the way his voice was so quiet. He loved his nervous and jittery fidgeting. He loved his smile and how it brightened up his face. He loved how he chewed on his bottom lip and how he had many episodes of showing his confidence. He didn't think it would be possible to love every little ounce of a person, but being with Jacob proves him wrong yet again. He allowed a gentle sigh to escape his lips while his gaze watched the soft sway of the trees. He felt very at peace with himself when he sat and stared at the world outside. Fields bring a sense of calm and tranquility. He loved the open space full of soft grass. He especially loved how it smelled when it was freshly cut. Just then, light footsteps pulled him out of his serene state. He saw the glimpse of yellow boots and smiled when his grandmother used his shoulder for her to comfortably sit next to him. 𝐿𝐼𝐴𝐴𝐿, he spoke softly when she linked arms with him. My handsome grandson, she repeated in a calm tone, knowing everything that happened today had settled in his mind. Isn't it beautiful out here tonight? Hunter nodded. It's so still. Flora looked up and saw that his vulnerable eyes were showing. She loved it when he stripped back his defenses and exposed his raw personality. His true self is rare and lucky to be seen. I think I picked the right days to visit. She rested her head against his arm. Hunter loved her comforts. This lunar cycle should be very exciting. I'm interested but nervous too. I hope everything will be okay with Jacob. He's very good at learning quickly. When you first connected with him, your mother said he would barely enter the house. Now he's acting very naturally and coming to terms with this. It's a lot for him to think about, though. I know if that was me, I'd feel a little too overwhelmed. But that's a great quality you have. You're able to put yourself in his shoes so you can fully understand what 𝐻𝐸's going through. You're full of empathy, and it's just what he needs. Hunter looked down to her wise yet old eyes. They have seen a lot. I wish I understood my role in all of this. My mate is a god of the wolves. That's just amazing. Hunter's voice was full of meaning. But I don't quite get what I have to do. Nothing. Flora could hear Fate chatting between Anthony and Scott as they talked about the wolves. Let everything happen naturally. Things like this cannot be forced. Life never happens how you want it. It can change so quickly. That is why you need to keep an open mind. One that's full of anticipation, and the need for something to happen is a disappointed one. Just lead your life like normal. Don't expect too much and don't expect too little. You're blessed with what you deserve. That's life. Hunter found himself subconsciously nodding. When he hits old age, he hoped 𝐻𝐸'd carry this much wisdom. Suddenly, he sensed his mate hovering patiently behind him. He turned and his eyes trailed up his body. He was sad to see him with a T-shirt on, but expressed a loving smile, giving him the confidence to complete his journey. He had a question. Hello. Hunter's senses spiked when his leg made contact with his arm on the way down the steps. Hi, he said quietly and pulled at the bottom of his T-shirt as he stood on the grass. You, could you help me with something? Sure. Hunter stood up when his grandmother let go of him. What's up? Can you help me get used to my wolf? Hunter let out a happy sigh and walked over. I would do anything to see your pup form. He chuckled. Jacob pursed his lips with a little smile. Do you know how to change on command? His mate shook his head, realizing it only happened when he heard or felt his power. Hunter tapped his chin with thought, but he knew what he had to do. Let's go further into the field and sit down. When Hunter turned, Jacob surprised him and slotted his hand perfectly into his. His immediate reaction was to squeeze it, but he was trying not to pull him into a kiss with satisfaction. When they made it to the middle of the field, they sat down on the grass. Okay. Get comfortable and close your eyes, Hunter said and watched him do it. Now you need to imagine your. Suddenly, there was a loud and troubled howl coming from a long way away as it echoed through the air. Hunter turned, recognizing it immediately. Hunter, Sam's voice echoed in his head. He sounded very distressed. I'm stuck in an animal trap. I need help. Hunter stood up and instantly started running towards the trees. Jacob watched him transform into his wolf form, and he didn't stop. He only ran faster. Don't worry. I'm on my way. Anthony ran over to Jacob with a questioning frown. What's happening? Was that Sam's howl? Jacob nodded with concern. He said 𝐻𝐸's stuck in an animal trap. Anthony widened his eyes. This is not good. If there are people watching that trap, we'll be exposed. He turned into a big white wolf and followed his son's scent, just as Margot ran past too. Jacob turned and hurried back to the house where his dad and Flora were watching. What's happening? Scott asked. A member of Hunter's pack is stuck in an animal trap. They've gone to help him. Hunter was galloping through the woods. He could tell he wasn't that far from Sam, but he needed to help him quickly. With animal traps, there are usually cameras and people watching nearby. He was worried and obviously drops everything to come to his beta side. Sam is his best friend, and even though 𝐻𝐸's mean to him a lot of the time, he really does care about him. When he heard a low and sorrow-filled howl, he knew he was injured. I can see you, Hunter thought. Have you seen any humans? I haven't. I can't smell any. He sounded like he was in a lot of pain. Hunter's eyes watched the surroundings while his parents silently stood behind him. He caught sight of two other pack members, Ricky and Jonah, also watching through the trees. They must have heard his howl too. Sam's front leg was caught in a metal trap that was impaling him. It looked deep and very serious. Just as Hunter lifted his paw to walk over, he heard the crunching of leaves under somebody's footsteps. Everyone watched as two people exposed themselves. They had their hoods up while one of them brought a radio to their mouth. "We've got one. Bring the rifle." Hunter's heart thumped. Are their intentions to kill? Sam growled when one of the guys stood closer. He tried shuffling back but winced in pain. Hunter connected his mind with Jonah, Ricky, and his parents. "Move out, move out. We need to scare them off before they get guns involved." Everyone followed his command and pushed through the trees. The humans got a fright and pushed their backs to one another when they realized they were surrounded. The one with the radio dropped it and froze. Hunter's eyes were very cold and he was getting closer and closer. He growled, showing that he wasn't happy about this. "Not one little bit. What do we do?" The human whispered to his friend. He stuttered, realizing they had messed up. "If we stay still, they might leave. I say we make a run for it. They might only be here to protect their injured wolf." Jonah and Ricky comforted Sam by gently licking his fur. The white wolves were staring hard at the humans, knowing they can't just let them leave. "Okay." The human was breathing hard. "Let's run in 3, 2, 1, go." They swiftly turned and started to sprint, but Hunter was quick and chased them. They were running for their lives and they knew they wouldn't win against wolves. Margot bit into one of their ankles and sent him crashing to the woodland floor as 𝐿𝐨𝐴𝐺𝐻𝐼 and Hunter jumped on the other guy. He fell onto his stomach and turned immediately. That's when his hood fell and his identity was out in the open. Hunter rested a paw on his chest and dug his nails into his skin. He looked up to his fearful face when he let out a cry of pain, only to stop and watch with shocked eyes. "Dad, it's..." He could barely believe who he was looking at. Anthony sat back with sudden horror and disbelief. "It's William." Chapter 45. Hunter instantly turned his mind link off from Jacob, not wanting him to freak out. But he was staring into the face of his brother who was trying to kill Sam. This didn't feel right. It didn't feel like something he would be doing for fun. "What do we do?" Anthony knew his son was incredibly angry, and if this was a stranger, he would hurt him until he begged for his life. But this was his mate's sibling and he couldn't injure him any more than what he has. "We need to question what the hell 𝐊𝐲𝐺𝐻 doing in private." Anthony could not understand why he would do this. "Do you think he knows we're werewolves or just thinks we're average wolves?" Hunter questioned. "Look at the size of us." "Hell no, we are not average." Ricky and Jonah managed to pull the metal out of Sam's leg and help him to his feet. He whimpered, but he'd be able to limp back to Hunter's house so Margot could aid his injury. "Margot, take Sam home and tend to his wound." "Well, wait till you're gone," Anthony thought. Margot and Sam slowly went one way while Harrison and 𝐊𝐴 started dragging the guy the opposite with their sharp teeth. The guy began screaming and grabbing at the ground. He yelled at William for help, who was paralyzed with fear. Hunter was glaring at him and still had his claws dug into his chest. He and his dad waited patiently until they could no longer hear the other humans screaming before shuffling away from William. "Shall we change?" Hunter asked. "Yes, let's stay silent and take him back to the house. I want Scott and Jacob to know what he has done." Hunter watched his dad, knowing that wouldn't go down well, but "I want his family to question him first. I don't think he knows what Jacob is or that his dad knows about the wolves. I want him to try and explain himself to the ones who he doesn't want to let down. Also, I'm going to get Alicia after all of this and expose her too if he doesn't know she's a werewolf. I bet she has something to do with this." Hunter sighed but nodded. That seemed like the best approach. At the same time, they both changed. William didn't react at first. He only blinked with utter confusion. His eyes seemed to be glued to Hunter because he was a familiar face. However, "Oh my God," he whispered and his hands began to tremble. "She was right, who?" Anthony forgot about what he just said. "Alicia. She told me about werewolves." William sat up, started to develop tears in his eyes. Hunter. You're I didn't believe. I thought she was crazy and I told her that. But she got really abusive, angry. I was forced to do this. Did I hurt your friend?" William sat forward and grabbed Hunter's shoulders. "I'm so sorry. Please. I had no other choice." Alicia threatened to hurt Jacob. You have to understand. All right. Calm down, he said quickly and looked at his dad. What did she say she'd do to Jacob? Anthony questioned. William rubbed his eyes and tried not to get emotional, but nobody knew he had been through hell for the past 2 days. She said she'd ruin his relationship with Hunter and mess with him mentally. He's only just starting to be happy again. I couldn't let her do that to him. Hunter was starting to feel sorry for him as he gently rubbed his chest where he had dug his nails in. Who was the other guy? He was a friend of 𝐿𝐸𝐴's. They said something about hurting the raisin pack. I knew you had that last name, but I didn't think you'd be connected to these werewolves. He then ran a hand through his hair and took a big breath. I can't believe I just said that. Anthony started to feel his blood boil. 𝐿𝐸𝐴 was targeting Jacob's family, trying to tear them apart. Hunter lifted his hand and patted his shoulder. William, she's not going to hurt your brother and she's not going to blackmail you or abuse you anymore. We'll sort out this mess, okay? We know this was you. Hunter stood up and pulled him up too. Anthony believed William. 𝐿𝐸𝐴 is poison and it didn't surprise him that she did something so sickening. Take him back to the house. Anthony turned and examined the woods with cold eyes. I'm going to 𝐿𝐸𝐴. What's happening? Flora asked. I'm not sure. Jacob was wringing his hands and pacing the porch. Hunter switched off his mind link. It was still odd for him to say these things in front of his dad. They'll be okay. She smiled. They know how to handle this situation. Does it happen a lot? Scott asked. Yes, surprisingly. It's terrible. He shook his head. Who would want to hurt such beautiful creatures? Unfortunately, not everyone thinks that way. Flora perked up when she saw Hunter emerging from the forest edge with Sam and Margot. They were all in their human forms, but there was an extra person with them. Yes, she grinned. Bagan brought the culprit for questioning. I love scaring them. Jacob watched as Scott slowly lowered his glasses down his nose. The stranger looked very familiar. William had not been told about his brother and his dad being here. He didn't know what was going on in Jacob's world. He only asked about Hunter and him being a werewolf. He could barely believe that he saw him change. He felt very confused. Wait, Jacob breathed. Is that William? Scott finished it for him when they both felt suddenly very worried. Flora watched them with narrowed eyes. You know this boy. He's my son. Scott started walking down the steps. He didn't want to think badly about this situation. However, it was hard not to. Hunter could feel Jacob's nerves, and this all needed to be explained before anyone got the wrong idea. Sam was holding his arm that was bleeding heavily. He would be fine. He was just in a lot of pain. Hunter opened a mind link between his beta and his mother on the walk back. He explained what William told him and they both agreed that it sounded like the truth. 𝐿𝐸𝐴 blackmailed him, threatened him and abused him into doing this. It was beginning to get dark outside as the sun carried on setting behind the trees when William's eyes fell on his father. Right? Hunter sighed. We have a lot to talk about. Flora nodded and turned. Let's go inside. It's a bit chilly out here now. 𝐿𝐸𝐴 put the kettle on. Hunter watched his mate as they made their way up the wooden steps. He switched his mind link on so he could keep him relaxed. Don't worry. It's not what you think. He took his hand and they both entered the house. It's all 𝐿𝐸𝐴's fault. Your brother had no choice. William kept glancing at Jacob. He was sure they used to be the same height and he was bigger built than him. When they were sitting down, Hunter left it up to Scott to question him. He understood that something serious had gone on as he sat forwards and connected his fingers together. What happened? William frowned and looked at Hunter. Do they know about you? He nodded. They know everything. William was surprised but took a big breath and decided to explain about 𝐿𝐸𝐴. He told them how she turned on him yesterday and started getting really abusive and threatened the family. She turned very nasty and he was scared for Jacob. He said how he realized her threats were real when she held a knife to his heart. While she did that, she told him about werewolves and forced him to meet up with her friend who was after the raisin pack. He thought it was all fake and she was messing with him until they caught a wolf today. That's when William looked at Sam with a huge amount of guilt. I had no idea what I was getting myself into," he said sadly. "I felt like I had no other choice. I thought we had just caught a helpless wolf. I never thought she was telling the truth about werewolves." Jacob's heart throbbed for him. He was going through a really rough time and he didn't know. "Well, hell," Hunter spoke softly. "Are you aware that 𝐿𝐸𝐴 is a werewolf too?" His eyes widened and he shook his head with force. "Are you serious?" Hunter nodded when he felt Jacob's fingers rest against the side of his leg. "She was a member of our rival pack and has been making Jacob's life hell ever since we connected. We split up their pack because they went too far and she's obviously holding a huge grudge against us. She's trying to kill your friends." William looked horrified. "And she's a werewolf too." Hunter was informed that the other guy who was with William and ordered for the rifle on the radio had been killed. He admitted that this was the first werewolf he had killed and it wouldn't be his last, so they had to put an end to it. As horrible as it was, Hunter has not come across people like this before and it would haunt him for a few days. It's always his dad who deals with it. William then rested his head in his hands. "I can't believe this." Scott got up and sat next to him. He gently rubbed his back, knowing that he needed to be eased into this world slowly. He himself had no idea that 𝐿𝐸𝐴 was a werewolf. It was a huge sign that he was kicking himself for missing. Just then, the front door flew open, making Jacob jump and strongly grip Hunter's knee. 𝐿𝐸𝐴 entered with an angry-looking 𝐿𝐸𝐴. There was a flash of dread in her gaze. Her future was not bright now that Anthony knew what she had done. However, she didn't realize that Jacob was, in fact, the most powerful person in the room. He hit the back of her knee, making her collapse to the ground. Flora watched with a small twinkle of excitement in her eye. Maybe she was a little sadistic for enjoying watching torture come to those who deserved it. "Look at him." 𝐿𝐸𝐴 growled and pulled on her hair. He forced her to look in Sam's direction, who was currently getting his arm stitched up. "If we didn't reach him as quickly as we did, he would be dead." Hunter clenched his fists in anger. "You split up our pack," she muttered. 𝐿𝐸𝐴 gripped her hair harder, causing her to whine. "And so you thought it was acceptable to kill? You have no idea what kind of pack you're dealing with." He glanced at Jacob. Having a god among them was making 𝐿𝐸𝐴 look like an ant in the wolf world. "Just because you're the big dog doesn't mean," 𝐿𝐸𝐴 stood on her ankle, making her cry out. William was avoiding her eyes at all cost. "Trust me, I'm not the big dog in the room." Hunter slowly brushed his fingers over Jacob's hand that was still gripping his leg hard. He felt immense levels of pride. When this lunar cycle finishes, his mate would be able to squash her in a heartbeat. He hoped. 𝐿𝐸𝐴 then pulled her to her feet when he sensed his own pack standing outside the house. "I'm taking you to the court. I can't wait to see the look on your family's faces. They told me when I split up your pack that they were deeply embarrassed to have a daughter like you. Just wait until I tell them this. Say goodbye to your rights." Everyone watched him forcefully turn and push her out of the house. They heard her fall down the steps. 𝐿𝐸𝐴 was going to get her locked away for a very, very long time. She would not see the light of day after he was finished with her. Flora smiled and looked around the room. "What a handful. Young William. You deserve a medal for putting up with that. But you also need a slap for letting her walk all over you. If you were to get anything out of this, it should be that you need to choose your women carefully." She then got up and wandered over to the kettle. Hunter shook his head and contained a satisfied smile. His Nana speaks her mind and he loves her for it. Jacob glanced back to his brother, who now looked a little troubled. He was better at coping with bad situations, but this seemed to go above and beyond his capacity. Flora then turned around with an intrigued frown. She tapped her chin before opening her mouth. Would now be a good time to tell those who don't know about 𝐿𝐴 being a god of the wolves. Hunter then took back what he thought as Margot sighed and rolled her eyes. But Sam and William frowned and stared hard at Jacob, who felt his cheeks blush. "What?" they both yelled in sync. "Wait a second." William sat forwards. "You called him 𝐿𝐴. Is that why it says that on your birth certificate?" Scott quickly turned. "How do you know about that?" "Before I left earlier, Mum was looking for old photo albums and found it. I thought it was just a typo, but she seemed really angry about it. The blood drained from Scott's face. Grace had found Jacob's real birth certificate. Dad," Jacob said quietly, "you should probably go home." Scott stood up quickly and nodded. He ran a hand through his hair. "I'm in so much trouble. It's a good thing I'm a great liar." Everyone watched him dash out of the door very fast, but Flora was left with a frown on her face. "He's a good liar, is he?" she muttered. Chapter 46. I wonder how your dad is getting on. Hunter sighed and fell back against his bed. Today has been a rather stressful one, and his shoulders hurt from being so tense. I feel like he might cave in and tell Mum everything, Jacob said quietly and shuffled up the bed. He rested his back against the wall as Hunter propped himself up and onto his elbows. And then he'll turn up here and we'll have to tell someone else everything again. Jacob was tired and was still trying his thoughts. He could barely believe that his dad had such important information for so long. Hunter then held out his arm with a smile. "Come here." Jacob stopped and watched him. He was fidgeting as always. "I just want to lie with you." Hunter chuckled. Seeing his hesitation, Jacob bit his bottom lip and slowly scooted over. He was craving his touch. When their bodies touched, Jacob laid down next to him. He rested the back of his head against Hunter's arm and his nose was instantly filled with his addictive scent. "I know you haven't stopped thinking about everything, but it's nice now that William knows too. You're getting more support and I'm glad." Jacob turned so he was facing Hunter. Their heads were close, but it was easier to accept their relationship than it was to accept his godly status. "I feel really bad for him. We should have known that Alicia was going to turn on him." Hunter watched his mouth as he spoke. "We should have expected it. But there has been too much going on. I'm glad we have finally got answers." "Though, me too." They both sat in silence and studied each other. They could hear muffled voices outside the room. William and all of Hunter's pack were here. Flora had done her best to describe who Jacob really was in the wolf world, but poor William cowled and really keep up. Sam was better now that his wound was stitched up and bandaged. Margot gave him strong painkillers as he listened to Flora, but it wasn't sinking in. He was feeling a little disoriented when his parents came to pick him up. Due to the antibiotics, they were not happy about him being hurt, and Margot didn't tell them the whole story of what happened. It was too complicated. "Have you thought more about talking with Brad?" Jacob whispered. Their faces were close. He had no other reason to talk louder. "I'd tried not to." Hunter sighed. "I guess I should. I don't have a Delta Wolf anymore and that position needs to be filled." He watched Jacob's colored eyes. They were so beautiful and expressed a lot of emotion. "How will you find someone for that?" "Interviewing and testing them on training days to see a fit for the role. We're actually having one on Saturday if you want to come. I want to see how strong you are." "I'm not very strong." "You're a god, Jacob. You'll probably be stronger than every wolf after the lunar cycle." "Stronger than you." Hunter blinked slowly. "Maybe." "You mean yes." Humor glistened in Jacob's eyes. "I mean maybe." Hunter grinned and rolled over so he was on top of him. "I'm an alpha, but I'm a god. I'm better than you." Jacob was joking, and it felt great to relax for a little bit. It was good for Hunter to witness his humor. He hasn't shown it very much. "Better than me." Hunter rested his hands on the side of his face with a cheeky smile. "Are you sure about that?" Jacob nodded. His body was pressed against his and he didn't feel an ounce of nerves. "I'm a better kisser. So that's something at least." Hunter chuckled as Jacob's cheeks went bright pink. "But you're getting there." He brought his face close. "Practice is all you need." He was clearly hinting that he wanted to kiss him, and Jacob was okay with that. The moment was growing with affection and their feelings were growing with passion. Just then, before they could connect their lips, Hunter's door opened and William walked into the room. He started talking about something, but Hunter gasped and turned. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up. He was in his territory. Jacob felt a sudden change in his mood. He was tense and very angry, but Ricky ran after his brother and grabbed his arm. He pulled him out of the room and quickly shut the door. Hunter stared at it and released his breath. They could hear his pack giving William a lecture on what he could and couldn't do. "Are you okay?" Jacob asked quietly. Yes. He could smell William's scent in his room, so he turned and caught Jacob by surprise. He fell back against him and buried his face into his shoulder. He inhaled his scent and allowed himself to calm down. Jacob very slowly brought his hands up and wrapped them around him. It felt good to gain the confidence. He would not be doing this a week ago. Scott was sitting in his car. It was 9:30 at night and he had been there for at least 2 hours. He was nervous and didn't know if he should tell Grace about the wolves or not. But what would he say if he lied? He was a good liar. Clearly. He had kept this all a secret for 17 years. Sudden, the headlights of another car filled up his view. He turned quickly but realized that Margot was dropping his son off at home. He sighed and climbed out. "Hey," he smiled when William came over. He looked better, but he could sense that he was quite happy. "Thanks for dropping him off." "It's not a problem." Margot tilted her head. "Have you been sitting in your car this whole time?" "Yes, I don't know what to do. Whatever I tell my wife tonight." Ivy lost her trust. "Maybe she needs to know." Margot smiled. "I can stay and back you up if you need me to." "Well, her parents are still here. I can't just blurt it out in front of them." Margot was sure what to suggest, but if Scott could keep this secret about Jacob, then he would surely think of something. "I'm gonna get going. I think 𝐿𝐨 is due back from the court soon. I'll tell Jacob to let you know what happened. I'm sure 𝐻E's also eager to hear what happens at home too." She started walking back towards the truck. "Good luck." "Thanks, Margot. Drive safe." Scott and William turned to face the house when she climbed in and reversed onto the road. When she was gone, they looked at each other, feeling rather anxious. "Let's get this over and done with." Scott sighed and entered their home. It was surprisingly quiet, and he wondered if his wife's parents had gone to bed. They were sleeping in their bedroom while he and Grace shared the sofa bed. Slowly he and William made their way to the living room and saw her sitting on the couch. "Hey, love," he said as casual as he could. Grace looked up and he was sure what she was thinking. He could read her very well, but tonight, she was masking any signs for him to detect. "Hi," her lips curled into a smile that seemed normal to William, but Scott knew she was suppressing her true feelings. "I'm going to bed." William turned and almost ran up the stairs, leaving everything for his father to sort out. "Where did you rush off to earlier?" she asked when he walked over. Oh, Jacob wanted me to drop him off at Hunter's house and I decided to stay for a bit." "Don't you mean 𝐾𝐽?" The silence rang in Scott's ears and he froze. She was going to explode on him and he was sure he was ready. She stood up with an angry frown. "I don't care what you have to say. How dare you lie to me like this? You named our son 𝐾𝐽 and tried to hide it from me. How could you do something like that?" She was breathing heavy and her eyes were wide and crazed. "I'm sleeping upstairs tonight. Do not think for 1 second that this is over. I don't even want to look at you right now." She marched past him. "So that's it?" he asked. "You don't even want an explanation about why 𝐻E's called 𝐾𝐽? You're just as crazy as your dad," she yelled. "He told me about that stupid story with the gods. I knew then he was mad and I didn't think you believed him." Scott didn't know his dad had tried to tell his wife about their prophecy. "I'm so angry." She screeched and stomped up the stairs. Scott wasn't really sure what to say or do. Nothing can change her mind when she was this mad. Obviously, she'd had talked with her parents about it, otherwise they would have come running by now. When she was out of sight and their bedroom door slammed, he clenched his hands and tried to allow his anger to wash through him and not manipulate his actions. He was annoyed with himself. He should have tried to hide the birth certificate better. But Grace needed to know that he isn't crazy and neither is his father. "She'll find out soon enough. So I don't have to go to college today?" Jacob questioned quietly. "No," 𝐿𝐨 smiled. "Your dad called and said under the circumstances, it's safer to let you stay here until the lunar cycle is over." "So he can stay until Sunday?" Hunter asked. "Yes." The boys smiled at each other. They liked the sound of that. Jacob was getting rather used to this cute little home. He was feeling much more comfortable as the days passed by. Today was Friday, which means he has 3 days of the lunar cycle left. Anything could happen to him. However, he knew he was in safe hands who don't judge and can keep him calm. I guess now I can help you get used to your pup form. They were already dressed with full stomachs from breakfast. Okay. Jacob smiled. Last night, they fell asleep hugging each other and woke up in the same position. It felt so magical to feel their bond complete before they even opened their eyes. It was horrible being far away from each other. Let's go outside. Flora was sitting in an old wooden rocking chair as they walked past and down the steps. She's a very early riser and loves to listen to the birds as they wake for the day too. She watched the boys make their way to the middle of the field before sitting down. Okay. Close your eyes like last time. Jacob followed Hunter's command and tried to relax. Now imagine your wolf form. Just picture it in your mind and imagine your body turning into it. Hunter watched him closely. He was surprised by how fast he managed to settle himself. Breathe deeply. All of a sudden, a huge boom of thunder roared through the sky and made them both jump. Jacob opened his eyes. His heart was beating fast. They looked up to see deep, dark and powerful-looking clouds hovering above them. Maybe we should go inside, Jacob suggested. Or maybe this is for you. What do you mean? This is day 3 of the lunar cycle. Maybe something's gonna happen. There must be lightning on the way. Hunter was a little excited. He was watching his mate grow stronger and develop into something he has always destined to be. They both looked up again when another huge roar of thunder dominated the sky. Do you feel anything? Hunter asked. Just as Jacob was about to answer, crackles of lightning shot out of his palms and circled his hands. Hunter gasped and jumped backwards, not expecting that. Jacob's breath caught in his throat when he felt an intense feeling right in the pit of his stomach. His palms were throbbing as he tried not to move them as muscles were collecting as much energy as they could. But he was not growing, only gaining the power of the storm. After all, he is the keeper of lightning. Chapter 47. Jacob could not explain why he suddenly felt so powerful. The lightning forming around his hands should be alarming him, but it wasn't. Looking at it felt oddly normal. For some reason, his mind was telling him that everything was okay. This is what is supposed to happen. Hunter's eyes were wide and he had shuffled away. He was incredibly intrigued yet, a little cautious. Lightning is not to be messed with. Margot and Anthony had run out to watch with the same wide eyes as their son. A huge rumble of thunder bellowed within the clouds. Jacob jumped and his gaze remained fixed on the flickering yellow lightning. A few seconds later, it grew more intense and started touching his palms. It made his skin tingle, but he liked it. Hunter sat up when he realized it wasn't going away. Are you taking the lightning from this storm? He asked. I don't know. Jacob breathed. What do I? He didn't know how to control it or what he could do with it. Hunter had enough of just staring at him, so he quickly got up. He wanted to see what he was capable of. Jacob slowly got up too and put his hands together. The electricity combined and continued to circle them. Try aiming it at something and see what it does, Hunter suggested. Jacob was slightly fascinated, so he pointed his hand and a bolt of the electricity shot out of him and landed hard on the floor next to Hunter's feet. He jumped back and almost lost his balance. Not at me. Jacob smiled and stared at the now burnt patch of grass in front of him. Could he really control that? He wanted to know more about it. Hunter watched him turn and point his hand at another patch of grass. The bolt, like last time, shot in that direction and exploded on the ground. He then turned and did it again. Hey, Anthony's voice echoed across the field, stopping him. Stop ruining my grass. Hunter rolled his eyes. You'll get someone for you. Do you think you can turn it off on command? I don't know. Jacob was getting a little excited. He has always been a bit jumpy and weird around thunderstorms. Now they would be his favorite kind of weather because the storms are here for him. Can you, come here? Hunter frowned and watched with caution. No. I want to touch you and see what happens. Hunter held his hands up and took a step back. I'm not going to be your little guinea pig. Experiment on Sam. I'll call him 𝐻𝐸𝐺𝐠. I don't think it'll hurt you though. Are you serious? Just look at the grass. Hunter pointed to the fried black grass with smoke sizzling out of it. You are not. Jacob pointed his hand at Hunter and a bolt shot out of it. But this time, it was different. It was like a rope of electricity that shot forwards and quickly wrapped around his wrist like a whip. Jacob. He panicked, thinking that his hand was going to burn off or he would feel immense pain. However, he didn't. Jacob's eyes were full of interest. He imagined that to happen and it did. How did he know it wouldn't hurt Hunter? Flora stood up when she realized young Jacob was managing to tame his power. He pulled on the bolt and it tugged on Hunter's wrist, bringing them closer together. How is that not hurting me? He was surprised. It felt cold on his skin. This is amazing, Jacob whispered and opened up his fist. The bolt shot back into his palm on command. He was overwhelmed. He was finding this too hard to deal with. He is now beginning to understand that this is, in fact, a gift and he should not take it for granted. Hunter walked closer and held out his hand. Jacob held out his hand to and rested it on top of his. The electricity began to flicker around them and not hurt Hunter one bit. It's such a strange feeling. He watched in astonishment. He has never been this close to lightning without dangerous risks. Can you turn it off? Jacob didn't want to see it leave. There was something about the warm yellow glow that comforted him. However, he understood that it was now in forever. Hunter watched it crackling in small twists, spirals, and flashes as it coiled around their hands. Jacob was incredibly important to the wolf world. He couldn't wait for his dad to announce it to the city so it can be declared across the country. It should spread like wildfire. A lot of people won't believe, but Jacob can prove his status now. He can show them who he really is and be proud of it. His confidence is growing because finally, 𝐻𝐸𝐺 starting to know who he is truly supposed to be. All of a sudden, the lightning disappeared just as quickly as it came. A yellow radiance faded and it seemed to be absorbed back into his veins and slowly released into his bloodstream. Even though it was gone, he could still feel it, surrounding his heart. Hunter pulled on Jacob's hand and made him lean against him. He quickly put an arm around his waist and kept their bodies together. That was hot. Jacob's cheeks, as always, reddened in an instant. I can feel it. The electricity. Jacob nodded and examined Hunter's face. He often found himself falling deep into his lustrous eyes. They stood out and melted him immediately. They could calm his nerves just by a certain shimmer. They were powerful and really exuded his soul. Now that this power had taken its clamp onto Jacob, he couldn't really explain why he felt so at peace with himself, and he was sure why he was starting to see Hunter in a more natural light. He was beginning to see more than just him, and he could sense his aura. Are you okay? He had been staring at Hunter with an amazed look on his face. Thank you. For what? Hunter chuckled and let go of his hands so he could wrap his other arm around him. For helping me through this. He was quiet, but he wanted to say it. I'm sorry that I've been angry at you for not being here for me over the past year. But you were patient when I yelled at you in my head and you tried to help me when I was at my worst. Again, he was great at expressing himself and found it awkward. But he was feeling relaxed and he couldn't keep holding a grudge. His life is changing for the better. This is who he has always meant to be. And I do trust you. Something within them seemed to set. Having trust issues in a relationship like theirs simply will not work. But they sorted it with time and tolerance. Hunter let out a smooth and short chuckle, sending quivers down Jacob's spine. You can still yell at me in your head. He smiled. And you can still break down when things get tough. I know you felt alone for a long time, but I'm here now. You'll never feel like that again. Hunter was growing closer as the sky began to clear after fulfilling its duty. I know that now, Jacob whispered and stared at his mouth. Then, without a second thought, he moved his head in close and gave Hunter a simple kiss on the lips, who raised his eyebrows, not expecting him to make the first move. However, his growing confidence was sweet and he loved it. He kissed him back, just before he pulled away, but the tingling on their lips of one another will stay for a little while. Hunter's eyes suddenly grew playful and he pushed Jacob back. He linked his fingers together and lightly cracked them. Right. Show me what you've got, lightning boy. Jacob shook his head with a hearty smile. Never call me that again. Hunter tilted his head and crossed his arms. Fine. 𝐿𝐥𝐼𝐴. It was now 7 o'clock on a warm Saturday morning. Hunter was stood with a bowl of porridge and messy bed hair. He watched Jacob from his door. His mate was laying in bed, protesting about leaving the warm comforts of the duvet. Come on. We get up early for our training days. Jacob let out a cue groan and rolled over. He was tired and didn't enjoy early starts on a weekend unless he was feeling ready for one. Hunter had not prepared him by forcing him to watch a film last night. Margot stood next to her son and rubbed her eyes. Bless him, she chuckled. It'll make him some breakfast. That might lure him out of bed. What is she making? His voice instantly filled up Hunter's head, causing him to laugh. What are you making him? 𝐿𝐴 followed her to the sink. Well, I think an English breakfast is fit for a god. Don't you? She said loud enough for him to hear. Jacob immediately lifted his head when his belly rumbled and his mouth started to water. He quickly climbed out of bed and sleepily stumbled out of the room. Hunter watched him with amusement. Why do I have to compete so hard with food? He sighed. Jacob pulled the sleeves of his top over his hands and stood politely, trying to discreetly yawn. Sit down, love. I'll make you some tea. Flora beamed and patted his back on the way past. Just as Jacob sat on the crooked wooden chair, there was a knock at the door, but Margot turned with a frown. She pointed at a greasy spatula at her son with warning eyes. Don't you think for 1 second that I'm feeding your pack? This family are the only people I will cook for. I am not your maid. Hunter held his hands up in defense when Jacob felt rather warm inside. Margot basically said he was like family. All right. Hunter slowly stepped towards the door. You'll get Dad to do it. Margot chuckled and turned. That's my boy. You should do it yourself, Jacob thought with a little smile. Don't you start, don't you start. Hunter gave him a cheeky stare before opening the door to his pack, who were looking a little tired but ready to train. Morning. He let them in and was surprised to see Sam with his arm still in bandages and sitting comfortably in a sling. What are you doing here? I said you could have this Saturday off. You need to rest. I'm fine. Sam chuckled. I'm healing fast anyway. A few more days and you'll be back to normal. That's not the point. Hunter crossed his arms. You're going to injure yourself. I'm not here to train today. I've come for moral support and also I want to see how Jacob gets on. Sam turned and walked over to him. He didn't say anything about his godly status. He was still trying to get his own head around it. Hunter needed to explain it all to his pack so they fully understood what was happening. Oh Alpha. Harrison stepped forwards. I've been told by my sister that she has seen Brad hanging around your woods recently. I thought you should know in case 𝐿𝐴𝐺𝐸's up to something. Nobody has heard from him since he was kicked out of the pack and his family haven't been turning up to the city meetings. That's interesting. Hunter narrowed his eyes with thought. Thank you for telling me. I will track him down later. You're welcome, Alpha. He beamed. Just like Sam. He loved to be praised by him. Just then, Margot put down a big plate of breakfast in front of Jacob, making his eyes light up. Oh my God. Oh my God. Sam breathed in awe of the wonderful food but stopped and stared at Jacob. Wait. Is it weird to say that around you? Hunter shook his head and received funny looks from his friends. They didn't understand. He knew he'd have to explain very soon, but right now was not the time. Shut up, Sam. Chapter 48. A god. 𝐿𝐴𝐺 frowned. Jacob. Hunter and his pack had reached their training grounds. It was on the outskirts of the town and owned by werewolves. To use it, each pack books a slot and has it for 2 hours. But because Hunter is 𝐿𝐴𝐺's son, he can book it whenever he wants and can use it for as long as he wants. He always chose a Saturday because it was convenient. Right now, they were all sitting in the middle of the court and Hunter was doing his best to explain Jacob's extraordinary powers. Yes, a god. He watched the men stare at his mate. Alpha, Gods do not exist. Jonas spoke quietly, not wanting to offend him. That's what I thought, but I have seen it. Jacob can show you. Hunter turned to his mate, who was fidgeting nervously. Do you think you can bring back that lightning stuff? His pack glanced at one another, not knowing if this was a crazy joke or not. But Jacob was bigger, and they saw how he healed himself in minutes. I can try. Jacob didn't like the attention. He felt very judged. They are not judging you. They're just interested. Hunter thought and gave him a smile of encouragement. Jacob watched his mystic eyes and took a breath. He allowed himself to calm down. He could still feel the power circling within him and tried his hardest to allow it to come to the surface. Hunter watched a little frown arch on his forehead with concentration. He loved it when he did that. He used to watch him do that in the lectures at college before they had properly met. Just when his pack started to grow confused, they saw the warm yellow glow appear from his right hand. Jacob felt the tingling on his skin and turned it over. Their eyes then saw a little bundle of electric bolts. Jacob was surprised that he managed to turn it on so easily, but he has the power within him. He knew he could do it. Hunter watched his eyes sparkle with pride, and it made him feel happy too. Jacob was growing with confidence every time he remembered that he knew exactly who he was. No way. Ricky breathed and sat forwards. Every onus, including Sam's eyes, was watching in amazement. What is that? Harrison questioned. Jacob is the god of electricity. Hunter crossed his arms with satisfaction, but of course, his pack wanted answers. But how? 𝐶 didn't quite believe it. 𝐻ES. Human. 𝐻ES not. Hunter sighed, preparing himself for a long explanation. Jacob liked watching the flickering bolts twist and turn. It was like watching the flames of a fire coil and sway. He felt like his inner spirit was this bundle of electricity, and it was strange for him to think that it almost felt like something which would listen to him and understand him. So he kept it on his palm and started playing with it by allowing it to wrap around his fingers. Hunter's pack half listened to him and half watched Jacob as he explained about his family and the prophecy. He talked about the lunar cycle and how Jacob has been experiencing different things each day. He talked about the other gods and their elements. He didn't know much about them, but didn't forget to say that Jacob was the only god to live in the United Kingdom. He was very proud of him and felt very fortunate to be able to show him off and big him up in front of his pack. After all, he is the alpha and dominance runs in his veins. He needed to look like the top dog to them, and this certainly showed it. Being a mate of a god was an incredible privilege. After he was done talking, everyone had raised eyes and an open mouth. That was a lot of information to process all at once. Does anyone else know about this? Sam felt like the story was sinking in this time. Not yet. But Alicia is getting sentenced today, and my dad has a city meeting tomorrow. I think 𝐻ES going to announce it then. Hunter found himself watching Jacob's power like a moth to a flame. He was so drawn to it. Do you know what 𝐶's getting charged with? He asked. Well, she did try to murder you, so hopefully she never sees the light of day again. Hunter needed to talk to his dad about it. But this kind of court hearing was only known to the wolf community. No humans were involved and no humans knew about it. Whatever is decided will be with the impact of their own laws. I'm still trying to get my head around that. Sam mumbled. It was a little hard for him to process that someone tried to kill him. If Hunter was a minute slower on that day, he would have died. Hunter got up and patted his shoulder on the way past. Today, he said, and stood tall as Jacob put the lightning away and concentrated on him. We will forget about Jacob being a god, and we will train for Sam's sake. Wolf hunters are out there, and it's clear that they will stop at nothing to hurt us. We need to make sure we are ready to defend each other, and most importantly, ourselves. We need to be strong and alert. Do you all understand? Yes, Alpha. His pack yelled back like it was a ritual. Okay, good. Go get. Now let's warm up. Change into your wolf and do 7 laps around the court. Hunter pulled off his shirt and changed into his wolf from Accept. His pack stopped and watched with loud gasps. He looked up when he noticed there was something wrong. Jacob's eyes were wide too. What's wrong? Why is everyone staring at me like that? Hunter asked his mate. You have markings on your fur, Jacob thought. Your ear and left back paw are purple and you have a big swirl on your back that's the same color. What? Hunter quickly changed into his human and stood up. His pack stood up too. What was that on your fur? Sam asked. Hunter looked deep in thought, but the way Jacob described it sounded similar to his silver markings on his wolf form. Jacob, change into your pup. Oh, devil bitch, Jacob was sure how to summon it, but he tried. He took a breath and remembered what it felt like when he last changed in his bedroom. Everyone was watching him, but somehow he remembered the feeling, and in the current moment, his body transformed. It happened so fast. 1 second. He was human and then he was a pup. His t-shirt landed on the ground next to him. He was too small to rip it. Hunter's heart melted when he watched his cute ears flops against his head and his big brown eyes dart around with confusion. Don't panic, he said softly and sat down next to him. Jacob watched his pause and understood that it would take him a long while to get used to that. He wasn't quite sure what to do, so he just laid on his belly and stayed still. Are his markings the same as mine? His pack nodded instantly. But yours are a different color, Sam pointed out. The purple seemed to shimmer against the light, and it really stood out against his white fur. Maybe it's because you're emates with a god. Jacob looked up, and for some reason, that made sense. Why wouldn't it? They share the same markings, and this is happening during the lunar cycle. You might be right. Hunter picked Jacob up and cradled him in his arms. He stroked his head with a smile. You're so cute. Alpha, ZAC stepped forward. What are you? Hunter frowned and stood up with Jacob in his grip. I'm a werewolf. Don't question me like that. His stern voice made ZAC lower his head. Just because I share these markings with Jacob doesn't make me any less of what I am to you all. Got that? His pack nodded quickly for confirmation. All right. Hunter knew he'd have to show his family this as soon as he got home, but for now, he would act like it was a big deal so his pack could get on with their training. Start running. Don't let me ask you again. The men instantly changed into their wolf forms and started sprinting down the court. It was huge and almost the same size as a football stadium. Sam walked over as Hunter sat on the ground and put Jacob down. He immediately flopped over, not getting to grips with using his legs. Hunter chuckled and picked him up. He hovered him a centimeter above the ground. He's all for legs. I know it feels strange, but after today, you should be able to master running. Jacob listened to him and managed to steady himself. I love his wolf form. Sam smiled and sat down opposite him. Do you think he'll grow? I'm not sure. Hunter stroked his soft ear. But the last day of this lunar cycle is tomorrow, so there's time. Do you think you'll get any powers like him? I'm not a god. But you are mates with one. Alpha. Sam was cautious about interrupting him. Jacob sat on his back legs and his tail started wagging from Hunter's touch. That doesn't mean anything. I'm just a werewolf. Yeah. And we all thought Jacob was just a human. Hunter watched his beta wolf with interested eyes. He had a point. Just then, there was a creak of what sounded like a door opening. Hunter turned to see someone standing and watching the wolves run by. When the person turned and he recognized the face, he stood up but felt Jacob's body rub against his leg for protection as he watched too. Hunter instantly tensed and glared with cold eyes. How dare you show your face here, Vic?